You're listening to the Light Over Time podcast with David Sargent and Korey Bartos. It is July 6th, 2025. Hopefully we get no more storms, because it was like every hour we would have a chaotic 10-minute storm, and I was like, am I going to lose power? And yeah, it's crazy out here. So we have kind of quite the show. It's been a chaotic couple of weeks. I have some highlights to break down, and then we'll get into the what we've kind of been up to, and then we have a big photo share today. So just kind of steamrolling right into some of the updates. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on tariffs, but a bunch of companies have their price increases in place, which is in conjunction with almost no one has really released any new kit. It's a little like, okay, well, so everything that's old is now more money and not going on sale, and you haven't released new products, so I'm just not buying camera gear. That's quite weird. I think Nikon is the only people that did anything recently, which was quite nice. The Z5 II, which I'll bring up here in a moment, is quite the new camera. But otherwise, Fuji XE5, which we talked about, and that's pretty much kind of what's going on. No word about any new cameras yet, but we're still kind of looking towards a potential A7 V this year, potentially a Canon R7 Mark II this year. But other than that, I haven't really heard much of anything else.
And an A7 IV being more than retail right now because of those tariffs is insane.
Yeah, it does not feel good. So I got a couple of things here that I wanted to consider. Our market is not the only market.
True.
As you might imagine. I think a large part of the camera industry moves and ebbs and flows kind of in the markets in which they exist, which is Asia. All these cameras are being made in Asia. I've talked about how the Asian consumers and the people in that part of the world use cameras differently than us. Generally speaking, across the board, they just use them a lot differently than us. We know that because we have tons of data, and we have a lot of consumer data, marketing, research, and all that stuff. And so we're seeing Sony's ZV cameras picking up steam, being sold, getting back into the top 10 cameras being sold in the US, which is crazy. Because I think generally everyone here kind of thinks that they're YouTuber wannabe kind of not fully fledged out video cameras.
I think there's two things to that, actually. I think we've been snowballing this smaller camera, compact camera movement, and I think that fits that bill too. I think there's two parts to that.
I disagree. I disagree in the vlog camera sense, because I think the compact, cool camera thing is separate from the vloggy content creator cameras. I do not think they're in the same scope. I don't think the people that are using the trendier Fujis and things like that are the same consumers that are getting the ZV E10, the APS-C ZV cameras. The R50V, or whatever the other V camera was from Canon. I don't think those are the same consumers, which is the only reason why I say that I think they're separate, and I don't think that it's just because of the trendy small pocketable cameras.
I have to imagine there's some convenient crossover, but you're probably right in the majority of those two separate groups.
I'm solely basing that on the actual marketing. They're not marketed to the same people at all, which is the only reason I say that. And I think it's why there's kind of a confusion in the US market, because the cameras that are working for those other very large markets are not the ones that are working here. And there's a couple of ands to this. I've been talking to some of the folks at Norman Camera in Kalamazoo. Norman Camera is a big camera store that's been around for decades in Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo. Cool folks. But we had some chats on something like the ZV5 II is something that the camera industry has needed. It completely broke the mold of what I think is the typical thing that's happening right now, which is...
Did you mean the Z5 II Nikon?
Yeah, what did I say?
Oh, ZV.
Sorry.
That whole lineup is a confusing slew of Zs and Vs, all right?
All of them are a mess. So the Nikon Z5 II came out, well sub 2000, completely professional body. And it's not marketed as a professional body, but it has all of the key specs that somebody who's like, if I'm going to do some work, I need this, this, and this. 2 card
A
slots,
professional can
all
use
the
it 100%.
right. So that came in well under all of the other quote unquote mid tier cameras. And
Yes.
so even Petapixel was kind of talking about what's the mid range. They had a whole deal on that where they were kind of um, making their cases for like what the mid range is in each of the camera manufacturers and stuff. But there's this issue that I think is going to get really tricky. So there's this thing that's going to get kind of hard to deal with, I think, for the folks that want these new cameras to come out, because we're kind of battling these markets, and we're battling what the full frame, mid range, whatever, all of the very structured for the last 8 to 10 years, where all the cameras were going will no longer fit exactly the tracks that they were on, the paths that they were all on. I don't know if that's just the economics catching up. There's a whole lot of things, but
Hmm.
that's going to be really hard to place an A7 IV in the market. That's going to be really hard to
Yes.
place these new cameras with these new features that people want. Because I think the American consumer, especially because of the YouTube machine, uh, you know, like people who don't need these specs are like, well, I need it to have 4K 120. I need it to not overheat and have 8 stops of IBIS, and I need that. Something that I'm realizing very, playing with my A7 CR, which again is a $3,000 camera, but it's like stripped down from the camera that it is, which is a now over $4,000 camera, the A7 R5.
Yeah.
Um, when you really say, what am I producing and what do I need? The YouTubeified consumers in America are buying way up when they don't need to. So the market has allowed for these companies to make these cameras at $5,000. There's YouTubers that are like, I'm going to be the biggest YouTuber ever. I have an A1 II, I have an A9 III. And they're not like they're not doing anything that necessitates the technology. They're just like at this enthusiast level that I would say that for the most part I am.
Hmm.
Fortunately, I am literally using these tools at work, and I'm pushing the limits of all of them for the content that I'm producing.
Sure.
And I get paid a yearly salary to do so. So I feel a little justified in that for myself. But do I need it? Absolutely not. Can continue to just use the A7 IV and crush content, right? So if it
You could
appears,
go back more generations than that too.
well, for sure, I would never do that.
Yeah.
But
Just
um,
saying you could.
yeah,
Anybody
yeah,
could.
I certainly could. I just don't feel like it.
Yes, yes, yes.
It'd be tough for me. So I think with the markets demanding these small, I carry my camera every day, but I'm not a content creator, which I feel like is what I'm getting the vibes from, like the whole Asian crowd. Um, is that they want these small cameras. They actually take them every day. They're using it to share with their friends. They're using it to like make videos or do YouTube in a I'm trying to capitalize my time and become the next great YouTuber. I just want like a cool, high quality small camera.
Hmm.
I'm not seeing that quite as much. At least this is just one little speck of the data that I'm kind of looking at to kind of see where we're heading.
Sure.
But it's interesting because if you look at the top sales and the major markets over there, they're loving these tiny cameras, and the YouTubers would have you think that that's not the case at all. Nobody wants that. Like, oh, I would never use a ZVE1. It overheats in 3 minutes. Pshaw for my 4K 120 for 30 minutes at a time content that like I don't. It's crazy. So I think a reset could happen soon. This will lead into the very next thing, but with a $1,800 full frame camera in America, that absolutely, if I was starting fresh today, there's not a single other camera I would get. I would get the ZV2 in a heartbeat. Like, it's really hard to justify. Did I say ZV5 too?
You did.
Again, ZV2, Z5
Me
too.
too.
The Nikon, the entry level full frame Nikon, which is actually a mid tier camera that every step of the way competes with an A7 IV,
Sure.
I would be getting one.
Yes.
They have some decent primes. They have like the Tamron stuff and like their the 17 to 28 Nikon, the Tamron made lenses for full frame that are like, I mean, with the entry level APS-C glass from Sony being not cheap, not super affordable,
Hmm.
um, it would make the most sense if you had nothing today to get something like the Z5 II.
Yes.
So that's interesting. Just to jump into the last part of that, I was kind of working on a video where I was talking about how good the A6700 is
Hmm.
because using that, I've started playing around with video on it lately because I returned my A7R5 and I'm just running my one camera and I have this at work, and I was like, okay, like I do want something that, the rolling shutter on the 61 megapixels is not amazing, especially if I'm doing anything fast. So I was like, what could I
Yeah.
do? Like, could I just not spend thousands of dollars and get like another A6700 for myself and like run the video? And the short answer is basically yes. It is super good. I already have a 24 mil f1.4G master, so like that's cheat mode because that's essentially 35, which is my favorite focal length, and it runs all day. It does 4K 120, 4K 60, 4K 30, 4K 24, all beautiful, 10-bit, whatever you need. And then when you start to spec it out, I kind of did the what I'm gonna recommend to humans kind of thing. It's $1,500. So if I was buying it, no sale, no creator discount, no tips and tricks, just a normal consumer trying to get a camera, I wouldn't recommend it.
Mm.
I don't think I would. I think it'd be really hard for me to. Um, I think because APS-C could be on its dying leg for Sony, um, like you're better off not buying a single APS-C lens, and that sucks because I've been borrowing this 11 mil, which is essentially a 16 mil lens for APS-C, and it's incredible. This is one of the newest APS-C lens from
Yeah.
Sony, and they're great. It's like super high quality. I even put it on my A7CR. It's an awesome lens, but it's not cheap. I could buy almost any of the S line primes, the 1.8s from Nikon for this. And I went, okay, so if I can get like the Nikon 50 or the Nikon 35 mil and a freaking Z5 II, why wouldn't I do that? There's
Hmm.
not like knowing what I like, oh, it's a great camera, definitely do it. I wouldn't. There's like you would have to really, really be crazy to do that, I think. So
Mm.
I don't know what that even says for outside of the very niche, like the wildlife people that would want an APS-C on the side, or but I don't think like I think that might be a hard sell for an R7 Mark II because they have even less support for APS-C and Canon, and that's going to be an $1,800, $2,000 APS-C camera.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
they do have less, although they've got Sigma now on APS-C, but even with that, it's still less than Sony for sure.
but Canon's
Do you
whole
think there will be a proper successor to the A6700?
I would hope because I think it's an incredible camera, but at this point, like, I wonder if Sony's like, dude, should we drop an A7 V or should we do something about this Z5 II?
Right.
Because nobody can
What
touch
can
that.
they do?
Like, what? I mean, I guess technically the R8 is doing that, right? Like the R8 was the first one that was like,
Sure.
oh, we're sub $1,500, but it's
Hmm.
not that good. It has no mechanical shutter. Like, there's a lot of
It's got a different set of pros and cons.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't feel even it feels closer to the EOS R, the EOS RP than it does even the R6 Mark 1. So
Sure.
it doesn't feel like it's up to the job like the Z5 II does. And I've been thinking about this way too much this week because I've had a few conversations. I've been doing a lot of marketing for other stuff on the side, and it's just like it's crazy. Um, Trying to get back into marketing research and things like that. So it was like a fun little thing to dig
Yeah.
through all of this. But I don't know, like without actually being a part of any of these companies and knowing, like, would I even spend time with the tariff costs and all this stuff to spin up an R7 Mark II? Should I ever do an A6800 or something, right? Like, because if I was Sony, I was like, oh, I have to break 2 grand. I need to put something out that's like essentially like rehash the A7C2 or something. Do whatever you can to make something
Yeah.
that's like $1,900, like 1898 or whatever Sony's weird like pricing scheme is. But
Yeah, Z5 II with that price is like a fatal blow, right? Like I don't think that Sony's going to have something to answer to that in an equal space in that price point.
right, and
I don't think they can do it.
Canon's whole thing has always been like, let's just get them on the full frame system. Like, let's do everything we can to
Yeah,
get our consumers to
yeah,
go straight to that. That's why they barely have done anything with the RFS like mount, quote unquote, their APS-C style lenses and stuff. Um, and so like Nikon just did what everybody could have done, and they were like, well, we can't chop the legs off of our higher end cameras, and they're like, we're just gonna do it. Just give it all. Just give them like not as good of a sensor. And then Lumix did the same thing, but kind of felt like it was like not planned out, or they didn't know Nikon was going to do that or something, because they're like, we're going to do it at $3,200 and make the same camera, triple it. Sorry, that's not really PC, but like really knock it down a few bars and make it really hard to compete with that top model, but it has the same sensor, has the same body.
right.
The that we're talking about, the S12E.
Yeah, whichever E camera that was. How much? What was the price point on that chopped down version? Do you remember?
25.
Okay, so that's not even that big of a. I mean, it's
So
it's significant enough.
so
But
that's what I'm saying. It feels like maybe they're like, we're going to do this. It's going to be great because we're still going to be able to get this stuff.
yeah,
And then Nikon was like, yeah, we're going to do it for $17.98 and
yeah.
high. And it's we did it. So and the Lumix cameras were awesome. Like, I'm so close to wanting an S12 just because I'm such a Lumix fanboy, and I have been for so long. Their lenses are just so boring, so there's like no chance they'll get me over there. Um, but anyway, I've spent way too long already on this, but I find it so interesting that in this plateau of like no news, no excitement, we've gone on this podcast for almost 2 whole years without having a lull in like exciting releases.
Right.
And I just don't. I think Sony probably had an A7 V in the bag, and they're just going to say, I don't know, supply chain and tariffs and stuff, we got to wait this out, because they're like, we blew it. It wasn't going to do what we needed it to do.
And it just happens that at the same time, Nikon is having their A7 III moment with the Z5 II. This is the camera that is probably not making them a dime, but is getting them all in the system. Maybe it is. Maybe they had the components ready to go and it doesn't cost them as much as I think it does. But for $1,700-$1,800, you just can't beat it right now.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I don't know all the actual data of how it's selling, but I happen to know that Petapixel usually knows their stuff as far as the back end of the industry, and they said that it was selling really well. So
Yeah, I believe that.
I have to imagine it probably is. But yeah, it took the wind out of my sails, because I kind of had I had a short form content and long form content about the A6700 and this lens. Again, this lens is great if you like APS-C and you're gonna like bird and you want a very small body. There's still reasons to choose it, but me thinking forward, it's just such a hard sell, because what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Try and like undercut the A6700 by a couple $100? You can't.
Nope.
It's gonna be over $1,500. Like, it's gonna be so expensive to go APS-C again, invest in glass that is wildly vignetted. I have to use crop mode, obviously, on the A7CR to use that lens. Still very sharp, but it's like it might be actually dead in the water for, we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah. Time will tell.
Yeah. So we can jump right into, I want to hear about your woes and your pains about the Z8 firmware breaking and
Yeah.
all that.
So, past me has always been mindful, especially coming from, A7 III, A7 IV. I always waited to hear what bugs would break certain parts of camera functionality. And for some reason, maybe it's just my little tiny pea brain was so caught up in the marketing of firmware version 3, because their page was so fancy and all designed really well, and it was full of features that I will never use, and that's a whole nother topic. So I was excited. In fact, there was some chatter in the Discord about it beforehand. I'm like, yep, I see it, I'm gonna go grab it. And I went and grabbed it, had no problem updating. And then I take it to work the next day, and I slap on the Sigma 28 to 105 adapted with the Megadap adapter, and everything was dark. And where the aperture would show, there was just two little dashes. And I knew immediately that, oh no, firmware version 3.0 for the Z8 has broken the connection between the camera and the lens. It's a third-party lens adapted. So Nikon's not going to say this is officially supported, but this is what this product, the Megadap adapter, is supposed to do. And it worked previously. So that sucked. I had to switch lenses, which is no big deal. I bring a lot of kit usually to work. And I did email Megadap, but they didn't get back to me. But luckily, I just happened to see the news this morning that Megadap had released an update. So I checked out their website. And I'm like a year and a half behind on firmware versions. Megadap has been updating that thing for a while now. I downloaded the bin file, put the card in, and tried to update. But the Z8 would not show me the ability to load the firmware version. So like, this is strange. It gave me two options. It said done or delete firmware files, which would mean like delete the bin file off of the card. So I was like, this is very, very strange because you can see what firmware for what you have. So C stands for camera 3.0 for the Z8, and then LF stands for lens firmware. And I was on, I think it was like 132 or something for the adapter. But I could not load the new firmware. It was like 1.4 or something like that. It would not give me the option. So I took, just out of curiosity, I took the card out and put it into the ZF, stuck the adapter with the Sigma lens on the ZF, and it showed me that I could update the lens firmware on the ZF. So I did that, then put the lens and adapter back on the Z8, and it works. So in my mind, if I only had the Z8 in the Sigma to 28 to 105, it would still be a broken combination.
Yeah, you'd be SOL.
I would be out of luck. That is mind-blowing to me, that you could have, what is that, like $5,000 worth of gear, and this firmware update that fixes a broken firmware update couldn't be loaded. I don't understand what that was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the game, playing with third-party
cutting
stuff,
edge
right?
technology and third-party. Yes, yeah, totally. I understand that. I'm just very, very fortunate that I have both of these systems to be able to handle that, and I thought of that while I was following Megadap's YouTube video specifically to do this.
Yeah.
They're using a Z6 III, and I was like, I don't see that option. Why don't I see that option on like a high-end professional camera? What's going on? Very, very strange. But anyway, all of that is to say, I guess, just don't update your firmware day 1, day 2. Wait a month, wait 2 months. If you can handle waiting while you have no pixel shift and focus shift technology merged into one, because that's the marketing they want to go with. I remember when they were, the D850 came out and it had focus shift technology built into the camera, and that was like part of the marketing, and it was exciting to read about it, but in reality, I never used it but one time just to try it out, and it was like lame.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
professional
thing,
macro
right?
shooters, like if you're actually making money doing macro work and your workflow calls for that stuff, you are going to like this. You're going to appreciate that. And I know a lot of D850 and D810 users, since Nikon was kind of on the top of the game with the high megapixel stuff, macro shooters really love that line of cameras for that. So I get it that it has a place. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, professional macro work, like proper stacked stuff, is also not 5 to 10 images. It's like 60 to 500 image. It's like crazy work. But yeah, I always like to update so fast, but unless it's something that I know, like, I would be functionally using all the time. Like if they were to give like all of the Sony cameras shutter angle all of a sudden, I would probably do it day one and just like deal with it. If it was when it was the breathing compensation for the A7S3 that I complained about for probably 9 months, stuff like that. But yeah, it's a pretty brutal game. Apple people pre like iPhone 12 know this all too well. But yeah, I'm glad you have it working. That would be such a pain in the butt. That is a lens that you really can't kind of compete with in all of Nikon's first and third party
Yeah,
um, line. So you're kind of living
yeah.
with it. It's so good. It's so good. I miss it. I look
I
at it
used it
sometimes.
today, and I'm just very glad it works. Yes, and Megadap's other firmware updates up to that improved some functionality for the lens also.
That's
Some
good.
better like low light AF and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm happy it's working now.
Cool. Yeah, that's excellent. Wild, wild stuff. Um, outside of that, what have you been up to? What's new?
A ton,
Yeah.
like a lot of shooting, and none of it has been birding, and it has felt very good to just step outside of that and use the ZF in new ways. I talked about this in Discord, but I'll go over it here. Alex Armitage is one of the YouTube photographers that I like to watch. He doesn't have as big of a following as some of the others, but he is kind of like fresh on some of this stuff with Nikon's ZF, which is one of the cameras he has. He developed some picture profiles that you can throw up on their image cloud web-based thing. And oh, actually, he made bin files for his picture profiles and put them on his website, which I then downloaded, put them on my image cloud thing to sync them to my ZF, which I think is a pretty cool thing you can do. His picture profiles are film sims of a few different film stock simulations, including Kodak Gold 200 and Provia 100F and a few others that I'm going to dig into soon. But I've been using the ZF the way he did in that video that he released, where he picked one of those picture profiles, where I picked his Kodak Gold 200. I really like the colors on that profile that he made. And then I walked around with a buddy, Jacob, one morning, and then just I think another morning or afternoon, and I shot a roll, quote unquote, of film, 36 shots. I kind of kept it to that. It really made me slow down. It really made me contemplate each composition as you would with film, but because film is expensive.
Right.
But it's just kind of simulating that experience, and I really enjoyed shooting it that way. And it just adds to the nature of what the ZF is kind of built for,
Sure.
because it's otherwise a very capable camera. Great autofocus. It does video very well. It does everything you need a modern professional camera to do. But because of its design, it kind of it feels good to use it that way. So I took it very slow. I really didn't look at any of the images after I shot them. I kept the LCD folded against the body, so I really didn't see anything until I got back when I was done with my 36 images.
Yeah.
And I was really it's just about the fun of it, really.
Yeah, for sure.
I was shooting in JPEG. I wasn't even shooting RAW plus JPEG this time, just JPEG, just like trusting the system. And there were a couple images that, of course, didn't turn out very well. A couple that I really liked, but were kind of crooked. But I was like, screw it. If I'm going to get better, I'll just work through that. And if I want to keep using it that way. But to me, it was mostly about reapproaching photography from like a super fundamental basics kind of way to get me having fun with it. And it did that. So I'm going to continue to do that.
I really liked a lot of your images. I think it's cool to see you doing stuff that I know you're obviously capable of, and things like kind of stuff that you've shot in the past, but not so. Mostly you'd get shots like that just while you were like doing something and you like snapped a couple. It's cool to see like a set of, hey, I walked out and these are all the images I took in this one session. Which is something that I'm also trying to get back into, where I'm just like, what's going to happen if I like try to find some images again? I started thinking that way after Ryan was posting. Ryan in the Discord, he gets really disconnected during the summer, as everyone should, and he's on social and stuff less. But it's been really nice because he'll just drop in like 10 photos or whatever, and he's been like, I shot some stuff.
Yeah,
it was cool. See you guys.
Yeah.
And that was why I was like, dude, I just gotta like shoot around a little bit.
So it's been great shooting that way. I'm in the middle of doing a session with the Provia 100F film sim that Alex made. I actually just I guess I could say I finished that. I threw a bunch up in the Discord. I really like some of those. Doing 16:9, which was, I wish I could do 2:1 in camera, and I could just crop them after the fact, but I just want to take them, enjoy what I've got, and throw them up wherever and just have them.
For sure.
So that's been fun. I haven't started a new one yet, but also I guess I do have this other part of this.
This was probably my question.
That's okay. That's okay.
No, it's good.
Ask the question.
I was going to ask about the Viltrox. Is that what you were getting towards?
No.
Oh, amazing. Go where you were. Yeah, go where you're going.
But I've also been more inclined to take the camera out for just family stuff.
Yes.
So 4th of July, we don't usually do big stuff, but we usually do like a cookout with some friends. We kind of avoid fireworks and usually avoid big groups, but we did take the kids down to the parade this year downtown here in Ishpeming. Tons of people. I'm talking like way more people than I've ever seen in this town ever, just packed in. And they got tons of candy and there was lots of floats and stuff. So there was like opportunity to take pictures of my kids doing fun things. So I brought the camera to the cookout, and it's just been really kind of like eye-opening for me to know that no one else is going to do this for me and my kids, right? Like it's got to be me or it's nobody. And I do take pictures with my phone, but if I bring the camera and it's sitting around my neck, I'm going to use it more than I would my phone being in my pocket a lot of cases. So I actually have sets of images just from these 2 days that I really like. So I'm going to be doing that more.
Yeah. Same. This we had almost no time, but we went up Thursday to Oscoda. We had Friday, and then Elle had to work Saturday morning and be on call. So I basically like took a nap. I missed the like good part of the fireworks to go nap for a little bit, so we could wake up in the middle of the night and leave. But I had my A7 CR with the 40 mil on my shoulder basically the whole weekend, and got some photos of like her nieces and nephews, and like just hanging out. Took some family photos of everybody and everything like that. And I don't normally do that or like doing that. And bless Elle's heart, she's very good about like not trying to get people to be like, well, have Korey do it. Like she's great about that. Like she's like, no, he doesn't have to do photos all the time, guys. That's like what he does. Like we don't ask people to do just like willy-nilly on a Sunday when we're all relaxed and like, hey Bob, you want to make a ring real quick? Like that's not how that works. So she's really good about like trying, but I'm also trying to open up more that like it is just better for me to do like, I don't like the whole family sitting there photos. I think those are kind of silly and I don't like taking them, but people really like them. I did one recently when we were up at the boathouse at Hope and Evans, and they were like, hey, let's get like a big photo. And I was like, I'll just take it. I ran out and got my tripod and like brought it out and was like, let's just do it. But like some of my favorite photos that I've taken probably happened this weekend, like of some of the niece and nephews. Like,
oh, I love that.
We went out to the parade as well, which I'm incapable of going to. I have trained with way too many SWAT people, and I have done way too much like kind of active shooter, kind of crazy like mental training stuff for me to be chill there at all. I had a evac plan. I was like, head was on a swivel the whole time. I was like, yeah, no, I'm having a great time. Let's get out of here as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But it was cool. I took some cool photos and, some of the kids on like Bob's shoulders and walking around with Elle and stuff like that. So having some, this is going to be my family starting next year. It's cool to be able to at least share some of those images with them, and they really like them. So I'm with you on that.
Absolutely.
It's cool. The magic of having this tiny, insanely powerful camera is wild because they're just a million times better than cell phone photos.
Mm-hmm. And I took the ZF with the 40 millimeter because it's one of my smallest lenses, and it just doesn't look imposing. It doesn't look too big and too like it. I didn't want it to intimidate anyone because the feeling of you probably understand the feeling of taking a camera with a big lens in a crowd of people. Don't like that. When you're not like paid to be there and have like this I got a job to do thing going on. The big lens kind of is like, this feels a little strange sometimes.
Yeah, and you don't want to like set people off or just like make people feel awkward or whatever. And 40 mil is perfect. Like, how are you getting along with that lens?
I really like it. We were talking about that 26 also in the Discord,
Yeah.
and I was like, yeah, I'd love that kind of small lens thing. And looking at it right now, it's not that much bigger. The 40 mil is great.
No.
I
Yeah.
like the separation with f2. It does everything I need it to do. So even though that 26 would be cool, 40, it's like it's not a pancake, but man, it gets to that idea pretty well. So I really like the 40, honestly.
Yeah. I rarely feel like I needed something else in my camera, and this is a f2.5. Like it's not even
Yeah.
quite as fast, but it gets the job done.
Hmm.
And bless Sony for making this tiny lens have an aperture ring and stuff like that. It just
I know it.
uh I just love it. I can live without all the cool dials and the fancy body because at least I still have my aperture ring, which now is on all of my bigger lenses, so I'm really used to running it.
Sure.
And I shoot mostly in aperture priority, so it's nice to just move my lens, and that's how I shoot for
Yeah.
exposure. But yeah, the dream. I think I'm glad I'm starting to shoot family stuff more, normal stuff more, random things, and still I think God, it's got to be 2 months now, almost 3 months maybe that I've been shooting all of my work on the 40 mil.
Mm.
I don't use anything else at work besides the 40
Wow.
mil for all
Yeah.
my Instagram posts, all my stuff like that. So that's pretty crazy.
It's
Um,
killer. It really is. Honestly, I even bought that 51.4, and they're not the same lens, but I will take the 40 out when I just want something small to walk around with.
for sure. Oh, definitely wildly different. Was any of your family like picnicky stuff on the 51.4?
No, just all 40.
It was all 40, dang.
All 40.
Because
Yep.
some of it looked pretty shallow, and I was like, oh, okay, that's
Mm.
pretty good. It must have had the 50 out, but that's pretty wild. That's awesome.
Yep.
It's deceiving. It's super killer.
Yeah. I
Uh,
can talk about this guy a little bit.
that was my next question. Was one of those sets that you had posted was pretty much a ton of wide stuff.
Yeah. The day that I switched over to the Provio 100F film sim was the day after I got the Viltrox 16mm 1.8 Z lens in the mail. This lens is great. I like wide lenses. I got this after trading in the Sigma 150 to 600 DGDN. I went through MPB for the first time, even though I've heard very controversial things about their customer service and some experiences. I don't know what the consensus is generally anymore, but my experience was good. I sent it, well, they quoted me 840 for the 150 to 600, 830, I think. And then when I sent everything in, they bumped it up $10 when they realized I had more than what they expected me to give them, which I thought, okay, that's fine. I was willing to take, about 900 or whatever for it, but seeing as they got to make money on it, that was fine to me.
Yeah.
And I was able to get the Viltrox out of it. Viltrox is not a lens brand I've used ever before, but I have kept my eye on them for a long time. They've been making lenses, and they seem to have really. I mean, I can't say this because I've never used one before, but in my mind, Viltrox was always kind of like that, just a step up above Yongnuo in years past, where it was third party. They were doing what they could. Everything used to be kind of plasticky. This is heavy duty. It's a heavier lens. It's got the LCD screen on there, so you can see like your distance and your focusing distance or whatever. It's got an aperture ring. I believe you can declick it. Yep, you can declick it. AF, MF. I mean, it's got two function buttons on it too. I didn't even realize that until just now. So yes, I did the whole Provio set with the 16 millimeter, and I shot it in 16:9 to like emphasize wide angle there and challenge myself because it's really freaking hard to get, I think, good, just very wide angle shots, a series of them. You really have to be super thoughtful because you're bringing so much into the frame about your composition. Everything I've shot so far has been on the ZF with this, but I really like the images. It's very, very acceptably sharp. My only comparison to an ultra wide is the Samyang 14 mil original, which is notoriously not great for image quality. I mean, fine enough because it was at 2.8 anyway. This is a 1.8, by the way. and that lens was prone to like decentering and stuff, and chromatic aberration was not great. This so far has been optically very fine. For I don't recall what the Nikon alternatives are, other than the 20 mil 1.8 they have is $1,000, I think,
Yeah,
900 or
yeah,
$1,000. So this being the next best option for like 650, you get 16 millimeters, 1.8. The reason I really wanted to grab this was because I sold my Sony 20 mil so that I only had one Sony lens to keep the Megadap adapter on.
yeah.
And so I needed one wide, fast astro lens because I do astrophotography often. The Sigma 28-105 2.8 gets me some of the way there, but I lose a bunch of light. And I really like to be around that 20 mil range for astro just to pull that Milky Way in some more. And 16 mil is great. I used to do it with a 14 mil. I can do it with 16, no problem. I'm thinking I'm going to really like this lens. I do a lot of landscapes also, so bringing a lot into the frame for me is fun and it's challenging. And I've gotten so many, I can recall a lot of images. I actually love shooting on that 14 millimeter. So I'm no stranger to the ultra wide. So I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with this.
Yeah, I definitely have done in the past. I've always kind of either had a 16 to 35 or a 17 to 28 or something like that. But it's actually probably been a couple of years. So running this 11 mil, which again is about a 16 as well, 1.8,
Yeah.
it's tough. Uh,
Yeah.
I actually found that I like shooting like portraits and stuff with it a lot more than I thought I would though. There's something
Oh,
about it that's like just nice. I took some photos of some kids and like we had sparklers and stuff, and I have some cool shots with it from them doing the sparklers and
yeah.
just like us hanging around the fire and stuff. And it's definitely got its utility. It's got me thinking about potentially going back to trying to at least have like a 16 to 35 in my kit again. I definitely don't need it to be that fast. It's nice because you can bring something really close to the lens and really blow out the background if you need to. But I think I don't know that I want to dedicate a lens to that wide when I almost never
Well,
use my 24.
Tamron's got a G2 lens for you now.
I know, and I'm gonna go try and play with it at Norman Camera because they already have one. It's
Dang.
only for the Nikon though, so
Ah.
I'm gonna go try to get my hands on one of their Z5 twos if I can, and just
Hmm.
kind of mess around with that. But um, yeah, that's great. Like I said, the set you did with the doing 16 mil all 16 by 9 is pretty wild. But it
Yeah.
it looked good, and
Yeah, it was fun.
Passive Tourist was like, wow, there's like no distortion and stuff. Like old head used to like not as
Yeah.
good of the editing stuff in post and needing to do all that like much more manually.
Yeah.
But these optics are so good now. Like everybody
Hmm.
figured out how to do it cheap. So who do
Yes.
you think is making optics? It's everybody over in China and Taiwan and the Philippines. So like, it's not a far stretch, especially somebody like Viltrox who really cut their teeth like billing out the Fuji and Sony APS-C stuff, and then they were like, "Oh, we can
Yes.
do full frame," and basically took all of the G Master specs for the body of the lens, and then like that, right? Like it has the aperture, it
It
has the
in no
buttons, it
way
has
feels cheap.
yeah,
It feels like when Sigma just started getting really good, this feels like they're in that range. Like
yeah, for sure,
I've got no problem with this. I'm
yeah.
happy.
Yeah. What's the one guy's name? Like Mark Bennett or whatever on YouTube, a camera guy, a few other folks like use a ton of Viltrox stuff.
Sure.
And then now they even have their premium, their lab series, which is like their 35 1.8 and their 135 1.8 or whatever they're doing, or 1.8 1.2. Um,
Yeah.
and that's just epic. So it's cool to have those options. I'm probably going to be a ride or die first party guy. Um, as long as possible. I don't really know why that is. Maybe it's probably because I'm still on Sony and I have a million Sony lenses to pick from, and
Yeah.
but it's still hard for me to justify after I spent 10 months of this podcast complaining about breathing compensation. I can't bring myself to go back to uh, third
Yeah.
party lenses, but I'm glad it's working out and it looks sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are 47 minutes into this podcast, ish. I'm going to open up Lightroom. We have a great photo share this week.
We do.
We have some proper photography. We had a lot of folks, even on, I think 3 or 4 maybe last minute submissions, three last minute submissions today. So,
I was one of them.
well, I don't count you, you or me, but yeah. So we'll just get started here. Do you got everything pulled up?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first one I got here is from Wesley F. Submitted this.
I'm a sucker for sand dune shots like this,
dude,
man.
me too. And so this is on a 60 to 600 mil, which is great because this proves that this lens is so good because this is at 60. So imagine having your giant lens and then being like, oh, I'm just gonna take a 60 mil shot real quick. It's on an A7R3. This is in Death Valley National Park, shot at f9, ISO 1600. And it's as perfect as this prompt could give you. You want texture, you want detail, you want a nice little composition. I would say nailed it. And I can't remember what the sensor is on the 3. It's like I think it's 42 megapixels. But the sharpness right through the whole center of the frame is insane. And you want texture, baby. That's every sand grain you can get. So it's cool. It's a really nice ridge. Yes. It's beautiful. Thank you for the submission. This just struck my little brain tizzy just well enough that I was like, I'm gonna put that one first because I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, anything else to say about dune stuff? When was the last time you were out west in Michigan to see those dunes?
I really haven't done dunes like that. I mean, Fisherman's Island was Lake Michigan is good for that. I literally have never been to Sleeping Bear, which is where like some of the greater sand dunes are in Michigan. Never been. Really should have taken that opportunity when I lived an hour away.
Yeah.
But Fisherman's Island was good for dunes like that too. But I never really shot it this way. And I really should have because I was seeing a lot of other photographers do that out of Sleeping Bear. And so I just never associated my spot with sand dunes as being good for this. And I think I locked myself in a box too much because I think I could have. And I really like seeing that kind of work.
Yeah. It's nice. It's pleasing. This could be the cover of a book or,
for sure,
little album cover or something. Yeah. Beautiful stuff. Here we got you boy Miles.
Yes.
This is at Black Rocks. This
must be. Yes, I was probably there with him shooting this kind of stuff because I remember shooting some ice like this. This is a good one.
Yeah, I love this. This is at like 1/13 of a second, f16, ISO 1600 on the old 28 to 105. Shot at 105.
He wanted every little bit of that to be in focus.
But yeah, it's pretty. I mean. Yeah. You can't expect much else. But A7R4, so that's my favorite sensor. This is just an enormous image, which is gratuitous and completely unneeded, but that's why we do what we do,
Yeah.
But just beautiful.
Looks good.
I love it.
Looks good, Miles. Thanks for the submission.
Big fan of that.
Yeah.
Here we got one from Kurt.
Yes,
Kurt. This is on a D750.
Yes,
with
sir.
The old 150 to 600 with a teleconverter. So this is at 800.
Keep trucking, baby.
850 mil f9, 1/125th of a second.
Dang, 1/125th.
But yeah, that's even f9 at that crazy distance is like a sliver, but just the crest of this is sharp. It's nice. It's cool.
Yeah. I think he showed me this image, or maybe it was another image he showed me. And just impressive what you can still do with a DSLR, and the technology of that time is totally viable, and it will be for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, you can zoom in into infinity. This would look amazing on social. This would look great even printed.
And I say that like the D750 isn't a professional tool because the D750 was like the choice for wedding photographers. I knew wedding photographers who ran 2 D750s and they would use the heck out of them. Shutters would go and they'd just get new D750s because that camera did it all.
Yep, was that the first one that did Nikon's legendary shadow recovery and everything?
Maybe. I'm not sure if that one had a BSI sensor or not.
Yeah. Well, at any rate, it was up top.
Yeah, it was. And that one also got a D780 also spec bump when That came out. That was an interesting one because we were
R-
well into mirrorless when the
Yeah.
D780 came out.
They
And I
were
was
like,
like, "What are you doing,
we were
Nikon?"
doing this, guys. I don't. There's, if I remember correctly, there's some pretty cool specs, some interesting features on the D780. I think that'd be an interesting one to go back and look at,
Yeah.
with today's eye, because it was certainly. I think you can see where Nikon wanted to go with their cameras, and
Uh-huh.
then their hand was forced into going
Yes.
mirrorless, which is why
I
you
mean, they
have
dropped the
the
D6 when they didn't need to, just like Canon dropped the 5D4 when they probably didn't need to. When
Yeah.
when Sony was really really maturing into mirrorless,
Yeah.
everyone else was like, "Oh,
Well,
we've
Canon
got."
was so far behind that they dropped the ESR and it was nothing. Like they're like,
Right.
we don't know, dude, because they also had a 1DX Mark III, which
Right, that's true.
two people knew about, and that was really long in the tooth. Like they
Yeah.
were like they should have been super mirrorless by then.
Yep.
But anyway, moving on, we got so Eric sent me a little folder of a
Oh, this
handful
is
of shots,
good.
and I couldn't, like, knowing Eric's work and what he does, I was like, I gotta go with the duck feathers.
Oh, this is his bread and butter, dude.
Yeah. It was a pretty eclectic folder, but I was like, this is money, and it
Sure.
looks super good. This, I guess, if I have to believe the metadata, I don't have the full metadata. He didn't include it, but it said it was an 85 mil. And it looks to be pretty shallow, so I'm assuming maybe 85, like 1.8, but it was on an A7 II, which is a heck of old camera, and this is gorgeous. Freaking
Yeah, it is.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's shot at f/5.6, 1/100th of a second, pretty low ISO, like 125, and 85 mil. So I don't know if this was a zoom or if this was actually just an 85 prime stop down, but man, the details.
I mean, it's good.
All the little
Yes.
feathers, so good. I actually, you almost want to open up a lot on like macro photos like this, but this like perfect purple, just having that sliver in focus
Yeah.
makes this, and you know what it is, like, so
Mhm.
this is epic. Super cool shot.
Very
Loved
nice.
it. I didn't even have to try that hard to think about the images, but we love it. This next one came in this morning from our good pal, Passive Tourist in Discord. This is shot on a Ricoh, as you might imagine, because
Mhm.
we love the Ricoh, but says this is the GR3X during my grandma's hospice care. And it said also, this made me realize I don't shoot a lot of close-ups or textures much. But I do like this
okay.
kind of stuff. I have a buddy in the guitar space who their mother was in her final times during like cancer or something, and he took a ton of photos, and I think they were on film. Jared Polin also very famously has a whole like selection of images when his mother was passing. And to get stuff like this in those final moments and spending that time and doing that is epic. And I certainly wish that I would have had the foresight to do it in some of my family's lives, but
Yeah.
super epic.
I like this. For the prompt being details, textures, and close-ups, what he was able to do here was take the focus away from the face. I don't know if this was planned as like a, hey, I want to take this shot, can you hold this up type of thing, or if it was caught like this, but because the face is obscured, it forces you to look at all the details around the room.
Yeah,
that's where my eye wants to go, down the hand, down to the quilt and all around, and I just look at every detail outside the frame, which I think works really well for this prompt.
Yeah, it's pretty well. That's good. But this is what your photography is about. So
yes,
never shy away from taking these images in these moments, even though sometimes it can be awkward and weird and whatnot. But you'll never.
Well, the size of the
them.
Ricoh helps that be a little less awkward, I'm sure.
Yeah, right. This next one is from Jacob, and this is black and white 35 mil Fujifilm film. And this is algae. And
algae.
Did I say Jacob? Is this who's? Nope, this is Jacob, Jason. So, all right, just making sure I had the names right. I didn't write this one in my Mila note. But yeah, film, water, algae, that whole deal. The light rays coming through it is super epic. They sent in two. One was in color and this one was black and white, but this one, struck me really nicely in my brain, so I chose it.
Very nice, Jacob. Jacob's been shooting with film for a while. He does digital also, but he's been experimenting with a panoramic film camera, and now the name of it is slipping my mind. But he's always experimenting with film. He's been shooting film for a while, and I really like to see that he's still doing it alongside some of his digital projects. This is great. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, what else? What else can you say? Love
This
to
is
see the
what
details.
nailing a prompt looks like.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, this prompt doesn't lend well to telling huge stories. I just love seeing details, right? So
Yeah.
we've got the algae in there, and honestly, there's a project he's been working on with angel wings, and I thought, even though if it was in color, I probably wouldn't have thought so, but I thought this was a close up on his angel wings, which would have made sense because that would have been a convenient time to shoot that. But algae, that just saying that makes me go, oh, very different setting.
Yeah. But I mean, that could have
Yeah.
been anything. It could have been a rug or whatever.
Yeah,
And then you start to
right.
see how the light is working through the water, and you're like, oh, dang, super sick.
Thanks, Jacob.
This shot comes in from Jason, and the note I have here is I took this photo of a dewdrop on a blade of grass during a sunrise photo shoot on the shores of Lake Superior using my Nikon 105mm 2.8 macro lens. I've been enjoying
Yeah.
shooting macro and playing around with a lot of different focus points and textures. I hope you enjoy the photo. I'm looking forward to listening to the episode. And yeah, this is sweet. This is wicked sharp, as you would hope a macro lens is capable of. But again, super hard
Yes.
to pull this off. The bouquet in the background with the other leaves is really wild, and something going on with like the lighting and how the bouquet is all in this. This is a wild looking image. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what the body was used for this, but it's stellar. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, he brought them both. Me, and Miles were out today shooting, and he brought both his bodies. He's got a small Sony body and one Nikon body, and I can't remember which either of those he has. But that 105 macro lens he has, I love it. I've always loved a macro prime, but I've never owned one.
Yeah.
And Jason, we've been chatting for a while. He's in the photography club that I'm in, and he's been sharing some of his work, and he really leans well into abstract work. He uses that macro a lot. It does look dreamy. It just looks wonderful. And he's got other works where you would think that he's done a ton of processing to make something look some way, but it's just the way he's got, the focus just so and positioned with lighting just so. So
well, you can
even
tell
though,
this
like,
lens has tons of character. Like
yes,
it's super wild.
and that's what I'm seeing. I'm like, I don't think there's a modern, and I say modern in air quotes because that's not exactly an old lens, but like the way that lenses that are new are developed now just like seek ultimate sharpness and clarity, and that kind of character has been pushed to the wayside for a while, and I really would love to get my hands on that thing because it looks like a lot of fun. And I asked Jason to supply an image because I just love seeing his work, and I felt like he's got a big body of work that would lend well to this prompt, and obviously he did.
Yeah, heck yeah, I love it. I love Cameras Conspiracies talks about it all the time, and why he'll never shoot Sony is that everything's just super perfect and clinical, and he wants the pop, the 3D pop.
Yeah.
And this is what he's talking about. Like, you're not going to get that without having, either some weird funky old coatings or, whatever they're doing back then to try to get their lenses as sharp and nice as they could, all their corrections. So excellent image.
Thank you, Jason.
I was going to drop this next one in between the viewer submissions and ours because I couldn't in good conscience not include it. But it's this paw that is taken on a Galaxy S25,
Yes.
and it was accompanied by a ridiculous, very lengthy email talking
Please
about.
don't read that whole thing.
I'm not going to. I'm not going to read any of it. In fact, I'm just going to let it live in the obscurity that it was.
Thank you.
It was this chaotic, really ridiculous description of this image here. And, it fits with the prompt. So,
yes.
Bailey wins this round, but
Bailey is my younger brother. He is not a photographer, although I suppose you wouldn't know that based on this image because it is a nice image of a dog's paw. This is his dog Luna, I believe. He has two dogs, and I thought it was his pug's paw, but it's not his pug. It's his other dog who is a mix of many things, and they're both sweet. It is a paw.
Yeah, there are textures. Yeah.
It's well framed, honestly.
Yeah.
It's well framed. It's not a bad composition.
The details are on the lower third. The lines go off into the out of focus area in the back. I'll take it.
I will take it.
Well played.
He listened. Thanks, Bailey.
All right, so we're gonna get into. I did a little series just because I'm gonna burn through them really quick. I've been playing again with these Mikey macro rings with my 40 mil, and they're really solid. They're very affordable. So if you have a decently sharp prime and you stop it down anywhere from 5, I didn't even stop these down very much. I think they're all either 2.5 or 3.5.
Wow.
But if you stop down to like 5.6 or up to 8 or something like that, even whatever lens you have, you can kind of make work if you want to start exploring macro.
Yeah.
All of these are lit with an iPhone cell phone.
Hey, nice.
So I just pumped a ton of light into the sensor so I could get it well lit. You absolutely can do that with whatever you're using. Most of these companies have pretty affordable rings for most of the brands. These work with autofocus. They make your metadata go through, and I think I can't imagine they were more than 40. I've had them for a few years now, but like again, very, very affordable.
Yeah.
So this is some ice from my freezer.
Sure
in preparation to start making a flash brew.
Mm-hmm.
This next is probably my somewhat inconsistent grinder. I really beat up my OXO, but it does well. These are some Rwanda beans from Strange Matter.
Very good.
Just getting right in there. Here's a close up on some of the little bubblies in my Hario V60 carafe.
Like it.
The tones are nice though. I actually really love how this renders like the corner bokeh and stuff when it's to get macro, you're pulling the lens off of the front of the sensor. So it's just like shifting where that focus is in the lens. So it's not like clinically good. It's not
right.
It's not what you want to do if you're trying to do really high-end macro work, but it'll get the job done if you're trying to focus really close to something.
Mm-hmm.
So this is midway through the brew, and then I poured it in a glass, and we got some bubbles on some ice. And I was just trying to spend some time looking at this and seeing how these like imperfections in the bokeh like render and some of the highlights, because it doesn't really know what to do. Like the light hits the lens, then it's in these like tubes, so it's like shooting down these tubes, right? So you have to imagine it just gets a little cattywampus by the time it hits the sensor. And that's why you get some of the swirliness and some of the weirdness and some of this like weird choppiness in the specular highlights and stuff. But
yeah,
she's fun. The 40 mils versatile with a cheap set of macro rings.
I'm uploading an image in here just because you made me think of one that fits really well that I did for work. So, but we're through now. Those are great. I do also really love the tones in that image you were talking about. So as a series, this works really nicely.
Yeah, I tried to go for it. I wanted the ice to be fairly desaturated, even though I tried to not desaturate it. I tried to just change the color temp to match what the ice looked like. And then everything else is like this golden crispy, and that's pretty much out of camera. Like that's not too much, just, general exposure stuff.
Nice.
But yeah. On to your first three, or did you want me to pull up this other one? Because
you can pull up that one last if you want to.
Yeah, it'll take me a second. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So my first one in there, I shot today. We walked out. I say walked, but it's a bit of a hike doing Dead River Falls.
Yeah.
You've got some steep inclines, and it's very rooty, exposed roots, and it's you sweat a little bit getting out there. But I didn't shoot the falls really. I've shot them. Gosh, the last time I was there was 2016. But it's waterfalls. They're nice. There's other waterfalls that are also nice. So honestly, what we were going to do is Jason and Miles and I got together to just shoot some textures and details. And Miles asked Jason and I to get out there to do that, and I was like, yeah, sure. I didn't submit an image yet for today, so maybe I'll get something for this. And I did get a bunch of shots I liked, but I was really fascinated by these butterflies. I don't know if they're butterflies or moths or what, because when I got back to the laptop, I did not see any of these red colors on this guy. In fact, in the background, you can see the top of the other wing is more bluish, and all I saw was blue and white. So when I got on the laptop and pulled these shadows up and I saw all this red, I was like, ooh, cool. But on the back of the camera, I think I shot off like 10 images to get this guy. And when I saw one that actually had like the eye relatively in focus, I was like, oh, okay, cool. This will work.
Yeah, it's pretty sharp.
I think this it fits the prompt. 28 to 105 at 105. I can't remember. It was probably like 1/1000th or something around there.
1250.
Yeah. So honestly, just was really happy. I tilted my LCD screen up vertically and just got that thing as close as I could underneath a little bit, so you could just get a little bit of that separation under the body of the guy on the flower, and it just made it work for me. I have others where I was much further up and it kind of got lost between it in the flower and the background. So this one I think I'm really happy with.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
The next one is a bit more in between for me for detail, texture, and close-ups. This is like, I put it in my intimate details folder, but you could easily classify it as kind of landscapey. But this is one of those types where I'm really focusing on the details of a tree. Obviously, I don't have the bottoms or the tops. I was really looking at like just shape here and just some consistency of shapes. So we have a pattern of 3 on these. I think they're birch, or 2 are birch, or maybe they're poplar. I'm not sure. But it was like 9:30 at night, and I had no sun left, and everything was really blue, and I was really liking these colors. So I grabbed this while there was no sun. There was all this shadow behind them. So I emphasized that a little bit in editing. Brought up the birch bark in the exposure. I just really like it.
Yeah. Did you have a tripod out there?
That was no tripod.
That's insane. That's 1.3 seconds at ISO 64.
Oh, wait. Maybe I had a tripod that day.
Yeah.
It would make sense that I did because it was so friggin' windy.
I was going to say, that's sharp. And I was like, that's 1.3 seconds at...
I don't shy away from
it's only 52,
stuff like
so
that.
It's possible. It's not like you were at 105. 105 would have been really brutal at 1.3, but...
You know what? It's more likely that I had the tripod that day. I bet I did.
Right on.
And then this third image is one of the times that I went out with the Nikon ZF using a 1:1 square aspect ratio and the deep tone monochrome picture profile. And I was just out shooting around Ishpeming, the town I live in. Has really old buildings. This building is owned by the Cliffs Mining Company, which owns like every freaking mine around here. They have a lot of different buildings around town that are very old, and I don't know what they do out of this building. I don't think they really use it anymore, but it's just completely overgrown on the side with all these leaves, and that is a window looking into the building, but obviously it's very obscured. So I just really, with this deep tone monochrome, it does a really good job of like letting the shadows fall down really deep and then allowing the highlights to really pop. I really like that, and that's what it did for me here.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that the focus is actually the window. It's one of those like really gnarly, probably thick windows, right? Like the weird thick glass ones, because it makes it. My eye obviously went to it because it's like almost creepy.
It is creepy because they leave a light on.
Yeah,
nobody's ever in there.
Yeah, it's wild. And then it's shallow enough, only at 44 mil and f2.8 that the leaves in front are out of focus, and it draws you right into like, wait, what's in that window? What's going on in there? But yeah, that's sick. That is an album cover if I've seen one. That's what I say to every decent looking image that's 1:1.
So this last image I just uploaded now is a series. This is a series of images I did. I did, I think, 8. This is for work of I don't know what I'm going to call it, but the folder is called Drink Tops. and we made like one of every different drink that we have. And the baristas really loved me for that, but I was like, give me one of everything.
Yeah, right.
So we made one of everything. This is just I very aggressively poured drip coffee into our mug, and it made all these bubbles. And when we started looking at other people's images in this folder, I was like, oh dang, I actually have this set that I did. Yours actually made me think of this. The textures on a drink, and I can't wait to post this because I think just artistically, I'm gonna be really enjoying that. I'm gonna have this on our Instagram and socials. But I love it. I just, you know what, this kind of stuff really gets me. So this is why when you asked me what prompt we wanted to do for this challenge, I chose this because I love this stuff.
Yeah. Again, really solid album cover here. But
Thanks.
No, it's epic. It's good. I'm a fan too. I have taken a million photos of the coffee that I make on a daily basis, and you always have a good time. Light hits through the window on your coffee, hard lines, soft lines, everything about it, man. That's my time making coffees for me. So
absolutely,
it's a great time to also have a camera in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that was hefty. We burned through it pretty quick. But thank you guys for the submissions.
Thank you.
Pretty epic stuff. It's cool to see, relatively, I mean, not relatively, but vastly different camera systems and different takes on kind of up close macro E. Some macro, some not macro. It's great.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
What's the next one?
The next one, I am going to have our very brutal, probably 2 weeks post sale. So
September.
Maybe we can talk to everybody and see what they want to do. Maybe we'll get in the Discord and see.
Ooh, good idea. Let's talk to Discord. Yeah.
But so that's another reason why y'all should be in the Discord. We'll come up with something and I'll make a short and I'll put it up on YouTube Shorts and Instagram Shorts and everything. And we'll do something, but we'll have a little bit more time. If we don't get it by the next episode, we'll do it in a skip gap. So we'll try to come up with it. We'll let you know in the next episode, and then we'll do it for the next episode. But probably still, I mean, I guess it's only the 6th. Yeah, so it'll probably still be before the end of July.
All right.
So yeah, we'll shoot for my birthday. That's the last day of the month. But yeah, kind of haphazard. There's so much that I want to talk about right now as far as camera stuff and photography and things, but I wanted to kind of do the TLDR on my melting brain, waiting for any new cameras to come out and all that stuff. So hopefully you enjoyed that. If you didn't, if you think my takes are bad and you have a better one, let me know. If you have any predictions for what's going to be dropping soon or why there's a lag, let me know. I'm sure it's just economics, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Otherwise, thanks for listening. That's all
Thanks
I got
for watching.
for you.
Bye, guys.